Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, Bradley Beal's not coming back Wednesday. There is a big game coming up. We'll preview it, but the big question on everybody's mind is how and if Brad can fit into what's been working for the Suns rather than doing his own thing and dragging it down. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on a Wednesday game day. Don't forget, Locked On Suns free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credential media member. How are we feeling on this Game Day Wednesday, Ben Garcia?
I'm so good. There's obviously more important things that we're going to talk about that pertain to the Suns, but it's kind of nice that at the end of the show, we'll have a second to preview a game because it felt like we haven't done that like since, I don't know, the first month of the season where like we thought that actually mattered, but instead everything besides games were mattering. So we'll get to the, the newsy stuff, but I'm excited just to talk about it. I'm like checking Celtics injury reports. It was kind of cool today. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it was cool.
That
it was
thing
cool.
that we theoretically cover is relevant again to our basketball podcast. It's been much missed. I really, I mean that genuinely. Okay, but let's get to Bradley Beal because you mentioned injury reports. He is still out for the Suns on Wednesday with the left hamstring strain. Let's just start with the injury and then talk about the rest because I noticed this quote from Mike Budenholzer today that raised my eyebrows a little bit, Ben, because here's what he said. We feel like he's making good progress. The next few days are big, and we'll just see how he progresses each day. So the context there, too, that I think people might not realize is that if you go back to the end of February, Brad has missed time like 13 games or something now. 7 games in this stretch with left leg stuff, muscle injuries, calf, hamstring, whatever. Right now it's a hamstring. He also had this left calf thing back in November. And I just hear Mike, what does the next few days are big mean? That's such a weird way to put it.
When you just say that, right? The next few days are big. It to me, just like on black and white, feels like they're debating shutting him down for the rest of the season. Because if the next few days are big, like big for what? Like, if he's going to play tomorrow, the worst thing that happens is the Suns lose tomorrow and they fall, a half a game back of the 10 seed. It's not like this is the fighting for home court advantage. So that's what I got from it. So I'm assuming that's the same thing you got.
I didn't want to dump all my thoughts all in one place, but I agree. And I was trying so hard to think, I don't want to jump to that conclusion. I don't want to be, it's a very vague statement. I don't want to just read too much into it, but that's such a, like I said, why say that? I was like, is he talking about wanting to beat Minnesota? No, I mean, coaches don't add too much. So I feel like that is in play. And that's 13 games with some variety of this thing stretching back basically the entirety of the season. It's not exactly crazy to think that could be. And if you remember, he has left games multiple times with this where you wouldn't have even noticed anything happen to him. So maybe they won't have to get to the decision that you and I have kind of been debating of if he's healthy, what do you do? He may not be healthy.
I don't know why they don't just shut him down, because when you break in, not in terms of a basketball, from a pure player's health aspect of it, he's clearly had these lower leg injuries, whether it's a calf or whatever it is for Bradley Beal, and on the same leg as well. So for me, it's like, if it's a hamstring, take away everything when it comes to if Bradley Beal is going to help or hurt the Suns. Hamstrings are tricky, man. Same with ankles. If you aren't 110%, there's also that extra, do you trust your body again if it actually is strained? Now, this could be a precautionary thing that the Suns saw how well the Suns were playing without him and pushed him out maybe a little bit longer. That could be it too, but there's not that much left in the season. I'm surprised that they said at all last week that he'd be reevaluated in a week. I don't even know what that means. So they're not evaluating the guy every day. But for me, it's dumb. But it's also like, if I were to throw it out there, I think that there's got to be some talk about him not potentially coming back, or just putting it on the back burner for now until the Suns, I don't know, maybe someone goes down, God forbid, or this takes a big spiral the other direction. But ultimately, I think they keep it really open-ended. None of it, we really haven't gotten a clear answer.
We haven't. We haven't. And I think if he were to miss the rest of the regular season with whatever this is, then it's really hard to imagine that a play-in game or anything like that you're going to be
especially his first game back
right then. So I don't know. I mean, it's the next few days are big, I guess, maybe Bud is telling the truth right there, but let's imagine a world where he is able to come back these big next few days. He aces everything, and the reevaluation that they're waiting on suddenly materializes, and he looks good. I have two things that I feel like are going to be key for him to fit into this, because I do think if he's healthy, he will be in this rotation. I don't know how much or whatever, but he's not going to be a healthy scratch. I mean, even Grayson Allen, who's a less pedigree player, probably everyone would agree a worse player, even he got 10 minutes when he wasn't even playing well, airballed a 3 last night, and he was still out there. So I think that's just what it's going to be. Take more threes. He's at 37% of his total shots are from deep. If that sounds good, that's a career high for him. Book's at 40. Tyus is at 60. Royce is at 75. Grayson's at 75. How many of their proportion of their total shots are threes? It has to. Even Ryan Dunn, who we don't even think of as a good shooter, 53% of his shots are from three. So Bradley Beal has to buy into that identity. And then the other thing I would say is it would be really nice if the Suns didn't have to continue to have two of the top 5 players in the NBA in minutes per game. There are going to be opportunities for Beal to, even if it's 2-3 minutes, 1 minute, I don't even know. There's going to be a few times where they can run some offense through him, take advantage of that skill set, and allow, ideally, Book and KD to rest. Now, is that going to hold up? I don't know, whatever. We can disagree, but I think that would be the hope if you're painting a picture. And then, of course, he has to play defense. He has to play consistent defense.
The defense thing is so nauseatingly, regurgitated over and over and over again, but it's true. If he can't play up to the defense that he was playing at the start of the season, he's not playable, because at that point, I'd rather just Grayson Allen be out there who's shooting the ball better than he is and will defend better than Bradley Beal does. So I think Bradley Beal needs to take a page out of the Collin Gillespie book, which is the defense, the get to the rim occasionally with that quick first step that Bradley Beal has. It's not Collin Gillespie, but it's supercharged Collin Gillespie. Be a superstar role player. You obviously have to hit your threes, but what Bradley Beal has grown accustomed to is getting buckets. That is no longer at all in Bradley Beal's job description. He needs to be the superstar role player that hits his open threes. He cannot be Ryan Dunn. We don't know what we're going to get on a night in, night out basis. He can't be not clogging up the lane, but clogging up the middle of the court, shooting mid-range jumpers. It just doesn't flow and it screws up the offense. And then defensively, say it again, he cannot keep getting burnt and falling asleep on rotations. That, if that stuff doesn't happen, the basic stuff, he's not playable, because what the Suns are without him is just better. And they already have guys that do that role better than Bradley Beal, who are bigger and stronger. And so I just rather Grayson Allen. So he's really faced with a fork in the road here of what he needs to do.
It's the same role we've been ideally saying he should play since he got here, except now the Suns actually have replacement options if he doesn't fit into it, right? Before it was like, well, we'd really like it if you played this way, but if you don't, we'll deal with it because we're not playing Eric Gordon over you. We're not playing, Jordan Goodwin or these guys over you. So
you don't want an Abe.
You can kind of do whatever you want at the end of the day, and we'll just have to deal with it. Now, whether it's Gillespie, whether it's Tyus Jones even, who's buying into that three-point gunning mentality and at least just doing that, or Grayson Allen, who, is probably the most one-to-one, they can just do that. I mean, I think we're not even talking about a Royce O'Neal or a Ryan Dunn because those guys they're ahead of him in the rotation already. I think most of us would agree. But let's get to one of the guys
really quickly before
go for it.
I just want to say really quickly before you jump into that, just so we're both in agreement, you and I are not living in fantasy land. Bradley Beal is going to play. Now, he's going to be given an opportunity to play. I do think there's a world where if he doesn't embrace, I think more Grayson Allen, but with the tenacity of Collin Gillespie, that ability to play, like Bud will be faced with can this guy even be playable in this offense? But you and I both agree, the comment section's not going to like it. He's going to play. They're not sitting him. So I think that's something as well. People are like, there's no actual reality where he just comes back and sits on the bench. I think you and I both agree, like we've thought about it. It's not going to happen.
It's going to be something. How much? What it looks
something.
like, that's what we're talking
like
about.
Allen.
So we'll see.
Great comparison with Allen.
Yeah. All right. Collin Gillespie. He is technically still a two-way player. He has plenty of games of eligibility left because he didn't break through until toward the end of the season. But once the playoffs come around, or of course even the play-in first, he's not going to be able to play. What should the Suns do about that next? First, today's show is brought to you by our lovely friends at Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting those tickets easier than ever. Maybe you're lucky enough to live in a city that is hosting NCAA tournament stuff. Maybe you want to fly, you want to drive over and catch a game, or you just want to be part of this Suns hot streak. On Wednesday night, Suns-Celtics, a couple more before the end of the regular season. Game Time's here to help with their new Game Time Picks feature. They filter out the fluff and show you only the best deals on great seats to save you time and money. With great seat views, pictures before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time also gives you peace of mind, allowing you to book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Keeping the show rolling here. Don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns daily newsletter if you have not already. That's at LockedOnDaily.com. Type that email address in. Get Suns news, NBA news, fantasy advice, and great written content, video breakdowns, and more right to your inbox for free, and it supports us big time. All right. So, Ben, Collin Gillespie is one of the Suns' 3 two-way players alongside Jalen Bridges and Ty Washington. That means that he splits time between the G League and the regular team. He makes a little bit below the minimum contract, and he will be a restricted free agent this upcoming summer. What it also means is typically they have this cap of 50 games where they can be active. Again, I mentioned leading into this segment, Gillespie's going to clear that because he didn't even, wasn't even a figment in our imaginations until like the calendar flipped to 2025. But the last thing is he's not eligible for the playoffs. And so the Suns have this situation where a guy that is literally starting for them right now may not even be able to play when they get to the play-in, if they get to the play-in. The problem is they don't have a roster spot for him. How would you handle this? What would you do? How important is it to get Gillespie onto the real roster, and which guy has to go?
The guy that has to go is really tricky. Because you get down to the Osos and the Mason Plumlees and Nick Richards. Like, you're not getting rid of Royce. I mean, you're not getting rid of Grayson. You're not getting rid of Beal. Is it Oso Ighodaro or Collin Gillespie? Is that what we're getting at here?
No, it's Damian Lee. It's
Damian Lee.
Bol. It's Monte Morris.
I forgot about Damian Lee. I forgot about Damian
rookie.
Lee. Okay, first off, totally fair for me to forget about Damian Lee, that he's on the team. But I mean, even Monte Morris, I don't know if you just want to cut him. Now, if it comes between Collin Gillespie and Monte Morris, I mean, you're going to take the guy that you're playing. When you look at the few of those guys, I can't believe I forgot about Damian Lee being on the team. I mean, it's one of those back-end guys then. It's Damian Lee, probably is the guy that gets cut. Micic is on this roster, although you just traded for that guy, but that's a guy that could be gone too. I forgot about Micic and Damian Lee, by the way. Just forgot that both guys are on this team.
Well, Micic would be a little bit difficult or a little bit interesting because he does have a team option next year. So you would kind of like really, really early decline that team option. One thing about Micic would be that, you know, if you potentially needed to use his salary in a trade, that could be, it's $8 million. So to give up the chance of using that money in a trade, if you really needed to, that could be part of why they might keep him. But that's more positionally one-to-one, similar to Monte Morris. I would say the bottom line of how I would think about it, who's the guy you're least committed to keeping next year? That's really the way to think about it, because you're kind of disrespecting that person a little bit, and you're giving up the chance to give them a little bit of that bump in salary that the Suns are still allowed to give a little bit of a raise, even though they don't have any of the apron stuff, you know, figured out yet. So to me, the least likely guy that you would want to retain is Damian Lee. He's been great in the locker room. They helped him, you know, navigate the injury last year. I know that he's beloved, but
is he?
Unless, yeah, I think he is.
I forgot about him.
No, I don't even necessarily mean by fans. I'm saying like KD has a relationship with him.
Oh, okay.
He's known as being like a very, very good dude around the team and stuff. And so that could be dicey. But yeah, I think it's him because Bol, we've talked about, you can give him that raise this summer. Monte is somebody I would just like to have in the building. He's a very good player to be, you know, a 15th man. He can definitely get minutes if you need him to. So yeah, maybe Micic if you don't care about that trade thing, and then Damian Lee if not. That's probably where I come down. And I think it is totally worth doing either one of those because I think Gillespie has become that important to this team. And I want to keep Gillespie long term. So I want to keep him happy, and we'll get to that in a second. I have a point there, but I think they absolutely need to do this.
I think if I had to pick between Monte and Damian Lee, and I think the way you put it is the best way to go about it. The Micic thing, again, is dicey with the trade stuff. And if you do want to have some sliver of hope, I don't think you should just throw that away right away. So he was already, you know, someone possibly it probably wasn't going to happen. But I think it is Monte Morris because you say guys that like you don't think you're going to keep next year or you're least committed to. I don't think Monte Morris wants anything to do with being on the Phoenix Suns next year. And Damian Lee, for all the things you said, I thought you were talking about in terms of fandom. Sure, I think fans like Damian Lee. Yeah. But there just need to be glue guys, connectors on the team, someone that everyone likes. That is a little hard to find in the NBA landscape. Like guys at the end of the bench that everyone is going to get along with. No one wants to deal with headaches from their 15th guy. And you do got to fill out the roster. Well, technically, you do. So I think it would be Monte Morris for me because I don't think he's coming back. I think that his stint here went exactly how you probably thought it was going to go.
Well, it went the opposite of how he thought when he signed because he thought he might be like a starting point guard. So I think that's why I think you're right. If I'm you know, reading the tea leaves, Monte might be the guy who feels some type of way about everything and just would leave. But
I think he might just want to be gone too.
That's what I mean.
Think
So Gillespie's contract. Let's talk about that before we go because he is 25, and he's entering his prime. He's probably like this is where he tops out. You don't expect him to get tremendously better, but he's proving to you what I think he was doing in the G League last year, what people thought maybe even coming out of Villanova, which is that he has NBA talent. He is a guy who belongs in the league. And so, you know, I always root for dudes to get their money, but if we're just talking about this from the Suns standpoint, the most common thing you see in this type of situation is for teams to give these guys 4-year contracts that are guaranteed the rest of this season. and then each year basically at the minimum, which is I believe all the Suns can necessarily do at this point, and then have them be non-guaranteed every season. Full team control, full power in the hands of the team every single season. If that player sucks or you don't have a spot for them on the roster, goodbye. Otherwise, you get them and they're dirt cheap. Like, that is the most common thing. I just looked it up. Justin Champagnie in Washington just got this type of deal. 4 years, $10 million. I would bet you every year after this is non-guaranteed. That's the minimum number. And, the team basically just gets to make a decision every season. Do we want to keep Justin Champagnie or do we not? And that's what you typically see. I guess how much the Suns like Gillespie is going to decide if that's what we see here.
Yeah, really stupid thing in terms of the roster stuff, because I think it's very clear Collin Gillespie needs to be here the following years, because regardless of what the Suns look like next year, they need more guys like Collin Gillespie. What I would ask you is, obviously these two-way guys, Ty Washington and Jalen Bridges and Collin Gillespie, because I don't know this off the top of my head, which is why I mentioned the Oso thing, which, just so we're clear, is never cutting Oso Ighodaro. My point is just that you can't move one of those guys. If you were to just say Oso, this is nonsense. You would have to cut him to have Collin Gillespie on.
Yeah, they have 15 regular players, and they have 3 two-way spots. So they have no openings on their roster. So in order to convert Gillespie, there's separate roster. Their whole different positions.
Yes,
it's like
there's two ways. There's obviously there's active roster spots. But what I was thinking of is, obviously you're not cutting 100%. You're not cutting Oso, but like, it's kind of, I didn't realize that you had to actually get rid of a guy like Damian Lee. What I think is just activating a roster spot. So when we go to like putting someone down, I didn't realize it was going to have to be actually just cutting those guys through and through. I get that with guys like Monte Morris, but I didn't understand that was like with Damian Lee as well.
So I guess like, or what you're saying is like you could flip them and put that guy in the two-way slot.
Exactly.
Okay, so the problem with that,
that's the point I was making.
That is worth explaining. Vets can't be on two ways. Once guys have been in the league for, I believe it's 3 seasons, they're not allowed to be on a two-way contract. So Monte Morris, Damian Lee, guys like that, they're not allowed. But even Bol cannot. He can't legally sign a two-way contract. That's why Gillespie, his last year, this is the last year he's allowed to be on one, because this is his 3rd NBA season.
I thought Isaiah Thomas was on one last year, but clearly that wasn't the case.
No, he was just on like a 10-day or like a minimum whatever. And then Oso, like, he could. Oso's not a good example of this because he's too high caliber of a player already. Yeah. But if the Suns had, like, if they had given Jalen Bridges, for instance, a full contract, and then they wanted to flip, that would be allowed. But it's you would just be eating a lot of money because, like, Oso is under contract for next season guaranteed. Most rookies get that type of contract. So it probably wouldn't make sense to do that, but that would at least be legal.
That's where my confusion came in, because I'm like, wait a second, I was never thinking about cutting anyone. I thought you could convert players into two-way deals.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had an expiration date, because I thought Isaiah Thomas was the same way too. So I think that was the part where not only I needed explaining with it, but I'm sure other people do. But moving over to the Collin Gillespie thing just really quickly as well, like, that's what this team needs. Like, they need this guy for next year. Gritty player that wants to win, that will do all the little things, regardless of what it looks like next year. So, I mean, top priority, they can wait literally till the very last day of the season, but it's something that they need to have make happen, because it was like the same thing with Ish Wainwright, where they converted it and they made him a playoff guy. That's when he's having Collin, because it's not just whatever, like, he's earned it. So,
yeah, and I think I would be even more excited about the future with him and getting him as a minimum contract that now can at least provide. He's not lost on an NBA court. Is he going to be a rotation player in a playoff series for the rest of his career? Who knows? We're far away from that. But like you said, whatever the roster looks like next year, that guy on a minimum giving you 10 minutes a game, why would you not want that? That's what you should be in the business of trying to find, and what the Suns have honestly overlooked for a while now. So
I think maybe I thought you could convert him. Maybe that's why I thought that, because I thought Collin Gillespie's just been in the league for 8 years. So he was on
Yeah,
it too.
exactly. He's 40. He's 40.
The way I've talked about him.
Let's look at Suns-Celtics, which, as Ben said, is very exciting, a very big game, and injury luck is actually favoring the Suns for once. Let's get into it next. All right, closing out the show, let's look at Suns-Celtics. Jason Tatum, doubtful with that ankle sprain that he suffered against the Sacramento Kings on Monday night. That is obviously good news if you're a Suns fan. Good news that it's not anything too severe for Tatum as well, that he's only doubtful and not automatically out, but he can come back Friday for all we care. That is not anybody's concern here in Phoenix as long as he misses Wednesday's game. But even with that said, this is not going to be any kind of easy win because let's talk about who's not on the injury list, Ben. Kristaps Porzingis, he is playing. Anyone but Tatum, basically, is who's not on the injury list. So I think I talked about this last week. We're finally through these 3 huge games heading into this last one, and I said the bigs are going to decide it. I've pretty much been wrong about that, although Brook Lopez was pretty dominant on Monday night. But I think how they can handle Porzingis, to me, is going to probably be, Brown will do his damage. You got to have an answer for that. But, the biggest matchup problem for the Suns is going to be Porzingis, and I could see him having a big night inside or outside.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think Porzingis' skill set, now it doesn't mean that Oso's going to come out and dominate this guy, but this is a guy that chucks up 5 threes a night, shoots 40% from the field, and Oso's not going to start in this game. Nick Richards might be a little lost. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, like we talked about yesterday, Coach Bud flips it and starts Oso in this game because of the ability for Kristaps Porzingis to shoot the ball on the perimeter. And Nick Richards, not as laterally quick or sturdy on his feet like Oso is. I think that's something that I'm excited to watch as well, because we saw him kind of get cooked down low between Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo the other night. But if he can show that he can be a pretty good defender on the perimeter, that's going to unleash another weapon for the Suns. So I'm really excited to see. It's a different matchup. It's not Zubac. It's not Brook Lopez. It's a guy that kind of lives on the perimeter a little bit. This whole Celtics team kind of lives on the perimeter a little bit, but I think it's really going to come to limiting Porzingis.
So the last time Tatum didn't play, Brown was also out. I'm trying to find a game where Brown did play, and here we go. They started Hauser. That seems to be the most likely thing of what they will do. And so the challenge is, if Porzingis is out there, that you're looking at a situation where, hold on, let me make sure we're not sounding like idiots. Is Porzingis so deep? No, he played last game. Okay. The challenge is you'd like to maybe put Durant on Porzingis to kind of do what you're saying that Oso could do, where you just have the mobility, you have somebody who can close out, maybe stay with him if he tries to attack a closeout. But the problem with the Celtics is when they're healthy, well, then your center still has to guard somebody, and there's really just nobody to hide him on. So, yeah, maybe this is a game where we do see, if it's Hauser and Tatum's versatility isn't out there, maybe this is a game where we do see a little bit more of Durant at center. That could be something. But the problem with Porzingis, too, is even when you maybe have a plan for him and you're even getting a hand up on his shot, even though he's 7'2" and can shoot over you, is they get switches for him. I mean, everybody remembers that spurt that he had when he finally came back in for the finals, and what did he have, 15, 20 points in that first half? And a lot of it wasn't threes. It was get a switch and him going to town at the high post or at the elbow. So I could see them picking on Booker, picking on Gillespie.
Yeah.
Where he's just posting up guys who are a foot shorter than him. So, yeah, I think that's really where I'm looking first. But on the other side, I'm nervous about the stretch that Book has had, and if they bottle him up even more. That's the main matchup I'd look at when the Suns are on offense.
Who has bottled up Booker more than anyone else in his career?
Drew Holiday.
Drew effing Holiday. I mean, Booker, I saw a thing on social media today. It was Booker stretch, 26 points over the last 4 games. I'm okay. Had 19 points the other day and wasn't very efficient doing so, and wasn't the other night against the Cavs. So not a great game for Devin Booker to get back on track. I mean, the track record is just there, man. Drew Holiday eats that guy's lunch every time they play. But on the contrary, I'm excited to see Ryan Dunn match up with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is a physical, strong player, gets to the rim at will, good shooter. I'm excited to see how Ryan Dunn's going to go up against Jaylen Brown, because I think at Ryan Dunn's pinnacle of peakness, I think it's Jaylen Brown. Now, can he ever be like that? It's so far away, right? So far away. But it's almost like a little bit of Spider-Man meme. Like Ryan Dunn as a rookie, Jaylen Brown as a former NBA Finals MVP. I'm curious to see how that goes down. And I think he's going to do a pretty good job on Jaylen.
Yeah, same with Dunn, with the type of whistle that he gets and everything. For me, I'm always just looking, can he defend guys like that without fouling, especially when they have size and muscle on him. Jaylen Brown's just bigger than most dudes, but he's definitely bigger than a rookie like Ryan Dunn. So that's going to be interesting. And then, I mean, last but not least, I know I've been harping on it for a while, but Boston's like the test of all tests to see if your three-point shooting is real, right? I mean, is your shooting real? Because they didn't really need it against Milwaukee. They had a really bad first half shooting the ball. They got a little bit hotter in the second half, but if this is the game where the Royce O'Neal cold streak comes, or if this is the game where Dunn just can't get the ball to go down, and maybe, KD doesn't shoot off 9 of them and make 7 like he did, the Celtics can run away with the game if you let them outshoot you. So that's going to be huge too. But what are your thoughts? Do you think how competitive can they be? Do you think this is are you getting your hopes up? Or are you trying to be even keeled? What's fair expectations? Like what has to happen for you to leave tomorrow night feeling like, all right,
they have to win. They have to win.
Okay.
They have to win. I'm not going to. So no moral victories this late in the season. They have to win, and it's not like they don't have their second best player playing. Like Jason Tatum's not there, so we'll see how it goes in tomorrow. But I think the Celtics win. I think they win. That's a buzzsaw, man. That's like the Nuggets a couple of years ago when like you're feeling yourself and the Nuggets walk into town and just grind you down after bucket, and it just doesn't stop. The Celtics took 50 threes the other night. If they're making them or not, they are going to be heaving them. And the Suns got to match that intensity, man. And it can't turn over the basketball. Like, you just can't. You cannot give good teams free points when they're already going to get buckets from the perimeter. Like, I can live with them shooting 45% from the three-point line, of course, if they're rotating. But, God, just don't give up free points. But, like, the Suns aren't going to blow out this team. If they're going to win, it's going to be close. And, hey, man, a close game with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker against Jaylen Brown, like, I'll take those odds. So you just got to get there.
The Celtics point differential, their net rating with Tatum off the court this year, would be the 4th best in the entire NBA.
Oh, I know.
So even
that's
when
why I called him the second best
court,
player.
Oh, that's not true. But I think that they are just so much of a finely tuned machine. Their net rating with Brown off is actually worse than with Tatum off. So
if I'm not mistaken, they're like, I'm just bringing this up because I saw a thing on it, but I think they're like 10-2 without Tatum in the lineup, if I'm not mistaken. I can't.
They just don't miss a beat. I mean, when you have the identity that they have and so many interchangeable parts, it's just really, really hard to beat this team. And I think also, it's a real test for the Suns. And the Celtics absolutely killed the Suns. I mean, that game that they played, I believe it was around this time last year, there was similar energy for the Suns. And it was like, all right, let's see. And I thought the Suns played decently, but Boston just absolutely picked them apart. And especially Boston's defense, the Suns just had no answer for. So we'll see. But obviously, Tatum has that opening, and they should try to win. They should. Well, I just like to win.
You mentioned that like barometer of like how many threes they shoot. Obviously, one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. Like, one of the reasons why they play so well without Jason Tatum is because Tatum isn't exactly an elite level 3-point shooter, shooting 35% from the 3 this year. So it's not like it hurts their identity at all that they're losing their best 3-point shooter. Peyton Pritchard just come off the bench and knocked down 6 of them. So although I'll take the Celtics to win, hope is not lost. Like I can envision, whereas a week ago I could not have that vision. where I'm like, Suns could pull it out. So if they do, we'll be partying.
Ben will be with you solo recapping that game tomorrow night, and then we'll have one more Friday to close out the week, getting our heads together on whatever happens, as well as upcoming games against Minnesota and Houston, because, yeah, the schedule still sucks even after this week. Enjoy the game, everybody. We'll catch you right afterward.